Namam Isvaram Satchit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Go Kule Brajamanam Yashoda Biolukalat Davamanam Param Ishjam Ajam Tato Drutya Gopya Rudan Tamur Netra Yugmam Rijantam Param Boja Yugmena Satanka Netram Muhu Swasa Kampa Chire Kanka Kanta Stita Grivam Damo Dadam Bhakti Badam Iti Drik Salilabir Ananda Kunde Swagosham Nemajantam Akya Payantam Adi Yeshita Geshu Bhaktarjitatvam Una Prematastam Shatavriti Vande Vadam Deva Moksham Namoksha Vadimba Nachanyam Vineham Vareshada Piha Idam Teva Purnata Gopala Balam Sara Memanyastya Virastam Kimanyai Idam Te Mukam Bojam Achanta Nilai Vritam Kuntalai Snigda Raktaischa Gopya Mus chumbitam bimbaraktadarang me manasya virastam alam lakshalabai namo deva damoda ananta vishnu prasida prabodhuka jalabdi magnam Ripa Dristi Vrisyati Dinam Vatanu Grihanesha Mam Agyam Ajaksha Drishya Kuver Atmajo Pata Murchaiva Yadvat Kwaya Mochi Tau Bhakti Bhajau Kritau Cha Tata prema bhaktim swakame priyachcha namokshe graho mesti damodareha namaste stu damne spura deepti damne twidio darayata vishvasya damne Namo Radhikayai Twadiya Priyayai Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikayai Twadiya Priyayai Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to our Monday night, for those of you in New Zealand, Monday night question and answer session. It's supposed to be a holiday, Labor Day for those in New Zealand. A real holiday, though, is any opportunity we get to hear and chant about Krishna and engage in Krishna's service. That's why Srila Prabhupada described the Bhakti process and the Bhakti lifestyle as simply recreation. You may find that hard to appreciate because sometimes there are inconveniences, things you have to tolerate. But as I pointed out, no, it wasn't to you all, but it was during an initiation ceremony Sunday for 3 devotees in Wales, UK. I pointed out Prabhupada remembrance by one of his lady disciples in France. She said that she was going through a particular rough patch. And Prabhupada visited France. And during class, he said something that she took as directly meant for her. He said that your most difficult day in Bhakti, think about it, your day in Bhakti in which everything seems to be a struggle. Maybe you're battling with your mind and senses, or maybe there's some social relationship problem with other devotees. Maybe there's a health challenge. Maybe you're overwhelmed, as I know quite a few are, by the current world situation. Of course, the world's always been precarious. Sometimes we notice and sometimes we don't. Sometimes the curtain of Maya allows you to see this is the way it's always been, and sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, consider, oh, this is such a tough phase I'm going through in Bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada in his lecture said, your toughest day in Bhakti far surpasses the best day you've ever had in material life. So please remember that. The best day you've thought you ever had in material life, or you wish you will have, that so-called best day can't get anywhere near your so-called worst patch in Bhakti. Hare Krishna. So we're going to look at the second canto, chapter 8, questions by King Pritchett, text 24. Often we like to start off our question and answer session with verses from Bhagavatam that are about questions and answers. So here we go. Sarvam a touch to Bhagavan, Prichatome Napurvashaha, Tat Twator Has Yudahartum Prapanaya Mahamune. This is Pritchett Maharaj speaking to Shukadeva Goswami. O great sage, representative of the Lord, kindly satisfy my inquisitiveness in all that I've inquired from you and all that I may not have inquired from you from the very beginning of my questionings. Since I am a soul surrendered unto you, please impart full knowledge in this connection. Purport. The spiritual master is always prepared to impart knowledge to the disciple, and specifically when the disciple is very inquisitive. Inquisitiveness on the part of a disciple is greatly necessary for the progressive disciple. Maharaj Parikshit is a typical disciple because he is perfectly inquisitive. If one is not very inquisitive about self-realization, one need not approach a spiritual master simply to make a show of discipleship. Not only is Maharaj Parikshit inquisitive concerning all he has inquired about, but he is also anxious to know about what he has not been able to inquire. Factually, it is not possible for a man to inquire about everything from the spiritual master, but the bona fide spiritual master is able to enlighten the disciple in every way for the disciple's benefit. Om Jnana Chimarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tazmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. For the disciples' benefit, questions are answered with that goal in mind. And notice how ambitious Pritchett Maharaj is. Satisfy my inquisitiveness in all I've inquired from you and all that I may not have inquired from you. And then Pritchett Maharaj states his qualification. I'm a soul surrendered unto you. So therefore, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena. If you want to know, you have to have the right attitude, the right posture, the right lifestyle. Pariprasnena sevaya, rendering devotional service. So what should we be inquisitive about? I've explained before that inquisitiveness has two departments. Number one, about inquiries about what impedes the bhakti process. And number two, what accelerates the bhakti process. We want to understand how Maya works, and we also want to understand Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So we're both negative and positive. Both departments have a crucial role in bhakti. The genuine guru speaks what Krishna says. And that is the qualification. We want to know how to apply Krishna's instructions in our life. The eagerness to do so, the ambition, the hope to do so is what characterizes a real disciple. We know in Nectar of Devotion, there's a description of Asha Bandha, hope against hope. I've got no attraction for hearing and chanting. We never think we have enough. I've got nothing good going for me. But still, hope against hope. I'm wanting to be attracted to Gopijana Ballabha, Krishna, the beloved of the gopis. So at this point, we'll ask you, have you any questions? I see in Stamba Baba's box, there is a hand raised.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. This is Manobi Ramdas here. In our university outreach, dealing with the newer generation, i.e. Generation Z, I've come across this phenomenon where individuals are introducing themselves by their name and also a preferred personal pronoun. For example, my name is Simon. My personal pronouns are he, him, or my personal pronouns could even be she, her. So yeah, sometimes their personal pronouns could be opposed to their physical gender. And university culture, they support the use of the appropriate personal pronouns, and there may even be mild repercussions if you don't use the right personal pronoun and the person takes offense. So how do we understand this phenomenon in light of the philosophy, and how do you deal with such people sensitively in outreach?
Dehi nosmin yata dehe, kumaram yuvanam jara. Tatade hantara prapti, diras tatra namuyati. We're not the body. So whatever you want to call yourself, please chant Hare Krishna, take prasad, read these books. We'll go with whatever label, whatever body you want to affix to yourself. And we offer you the process by which you can become free from all upadis, all designations, all externalities. So we don't make a big deal. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada in Australia, Melbourne, 1976. And it was question and answer time. So a devotee asked him, what about nationality? What do we make of it? And Prabhupada replied very directly, very straightforwardly. Nationality means dog barking. I am American. I am Australian. I am Indian. Whatever material designation you come up with, it's a dog barking for a short period of time until the dog can bark no longer and takes another body. When Srila Prabhupada speaks so bluntly, don't overlook the depth. He's provocative, but he's cutting to the heart of the issue. You're only here for a short time in this body. Why waste time identifying with this label or that label? So we don't get hung up in these things. All right, you want to call yourself a this, you want to call yourself a that. We don't take it so seriously. We do ask you to chant Hare Krishna. Read these books. Take prasad. Krishna can appear however he likes, in whatever form he likes. Even he can change his gender. Did you know that? Mohini Murti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the most alluring woman. A woman so alluring that even Lord Shiva's mind was blown. And he's the master of detachment and renunciation. How do you know that about Lord Shiva? His consort, his wife, is Maya Devi, the illusory energy personified, and he can handle that. He doesn't even get her a house. They live under a tree. He wears a garland of skulls. Yet his wife is the master of the material world. Devi Dam. His Devi, his wife, is the master of the material world. Still, Lord Shiva is so detached from her. But that same Lord Shiva lost the plot, so to speak, when he saw Mohini Murti. He asked for it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead told him, are you sure you want to see this form? Because Lord Shiva had heard about it. I'd like to see it. He was warned. Are you sure you really want to see this? And yes, he got that sight and was totally bewildered. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not the body. His form is always Satchidananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. But he can change. Still, there's the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. In the 9th canto, you read also about a king who underwent gender change. Still, all that for the ordinary living entity is external. So we ask everyone, please understand you're not the body. The whole world is absorbed in body consciousness, therefore there'll never be peace. Sometimes the illusory energy lets you see the reality, and sometimes not. Just like there are phases when devotees suddenly realize, oh my God, this world is so precarious. Kamala, Dala Jala, Jivana Talamala. And that bhajan by Govinda Das. Bhajahunre Mana, Srinandanandana. He says this world is like a drop of water precariously sitting on the leaf of a lotus flower. That drop can fall off any moment. That's the nature of existence in this world. But we forget that from time to time. And then all of a sudden something happens and, oh my God, what is this? Where's my freedom? What about my plans for enjoyment? As long as we identify with the body as the self, we're taking shelter of the illusory energy, and the illusory energy gives us no peace. All right. I see Prema Lahari's hand is up. I don't know if this is from her or looks like Chitta Mohini is prepared to speak.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I just had a question. I have a misconception that I want to get rid of. So the misconception that I have is that we are making advancement in bhakti only when we're working very hard and we're being miserable while doing bhakti. If we enjoy in the process of bhakti, that is sense gratification, because it's described that human life is meant for austerity. So in a lot of places, Srila Prabhupada says that. So we make this misconception that bhakti is supposed to be hard and it's supposed to be very austere and like that.
We ask you to follow the 4 regular principles. Some people think that's very severe. We ask you to chant Hare Krishna every day and always try to engage your senses in Krishna's service. Some people consider that to be very difficult. The Bhagavatam advises us that when you feel that everything is fine, you're grateful to Krishna and you use that feeling to engage more in Krishna's service. And when the inevitable challenges to the body, to the mind, to the material world become prominent, you thank Krishna, saying, I actually deserve much worse. So whether this way or that way, whether up or down, all around, you use the situation for increasing your focus on Krishna's pleasure. What does Bhaktivinoda Thakur sing? He says, whether in happiness or distress, chant Hare Krishna. So we don't get hung up whether you feel happy or whether you feel distressed. We just want to chant Hare Krishna and engage in Krishna's service. Happiness and distress will come and go. They're external. Just like the winds in New Zealand. One day the wind's coming from the southeast. The next day the wind's coming from the northwest. And but you go on with your existence. Similarly, happiness comes, distress comes, but these winds are external. Our devotional service goes on in any case. So we're not hung up about being happy, and we're not hung up about being distressed. Bhakti is actually beyond both sukha and dukkha, beyond both happiness and distress. But still, even if you think, oh, I'm actually having a good week, I feel happy. Great. Thank Krishna for it. And be more inspired to engage in Krishna's service. We're not going to persecute you because you feel happy. Chitta Mohini, what is this? You're looking happy. We want happy devotees. At the same time, we know that real happiness is not on the material platform. But if you're relishing taking Krishna Prasad as Krishna's mercy, if you're relishing hearing and chanting about Krishna, if you're relishing engaging your senses, actually they belong to Krishna, his senses, in Krishna's service, if you're happy doing that, that's wonderful. That's the way it should be. Have the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam to carry you through when the inevitable challenges come from the material energy. But again, as we said in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada said that actually this process is simply recreation. All right, Gaur Arti, or is that going to be Nitai?
Yeah, ask Nita. Oh, you go ask. This is a question from Nitai. What was why
does Krishna love us so much?
We are his parts, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We belong to Krishna. In order for Krishna to be perfect and complete, there has to be the infinite as well as the finite, the limitless as well as the limited. Krishna has everything. That means he has you. Just like you're sitting with your mother and you think, oh, my mother, right? Krishna has you. And as you advance in bhakti, a sense of ownership develops. Krishna is mine. Just like your mother thinks, this is my boy, my Nitai. So in the advanced stage of bhakti, called mamata, when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita one day, you'll read about that. That advanced stage, the devotee thinks, he's my master, or he's my friend. He or she is my parent. She's my lover. This makes the relationship sweeter and sweeter. In the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna explains that his devotees are dearer to him than his own self. To understand this mystery of how dear devotees are to Krishna, Krishna comes as a devotee. Who is that? Who is Krishna coming as a devotee? Do you know?
You know?
Chaitanya.
Chaitanya, yes. Very good. You got a gold star for today. All right. Oliver.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Thank you for the class. My question is, since Krishna is omniscient, knowing past, present, and future, how does he relish pastimes? How does he relish relationships with his devotees if he knows what the reaction is going to be?
Knowing everything doesn't cancel out pleasure. We, with our material brain, think that, well, it's one thing or the other. Krishna arranges for the maximum pleasure. He has a pastime management energy called Leela Shakti. So it's not that the way we do things is the way Krishna does things. We have to focus completely on making arrangements for our pleasure. Krishna has an energy that manages all that. So it's not that his being omniscient affects the pleasure he gets from his relationships. He can do whatever he likes. His omniscience can remain hidden, so to speak. It doesn't get in the way of his relishing loving affairs. That's the nectar of his Vraj Leela, his Aishvarya, his opulences of power and knowledge, etc. They're there, but they're in the background. Sometimes they suddenly come to the foreground, just like when Mother Yashoda is trying to bind Krishna with a rope. What can tie up Krishna? Bhakti Badam. He's only bound by Bhakti, we sing in the Damodarastik. So Krishna's Aishvarya, his opulence, potency manifested. And Mother Yashoda couldn't get the rope around him. How do you get the rope around someone who has no beginning or end? So his Aishvarya, his potency of power manifested. And then because he saw his mother getting fatigued trying to bind him, she had gathered all the ropes in the village. And always, whenever she joined the ropes together, the end result was 2 fingers short. She was doing this all day. The older gopis were watching and smiling. What kind of child is this? He's not able to be bound. But then Krishna impressed by Mother Yashoda's love, agreed to be bound. All right, I'll let you bind me. She's binding him to the wooden mortar for grinding spices, or the wooden mortar for churning milk into butter. The same mortar or the same device that Krishna stood on top of to reach milk products hanging from the ceiling. He's Makanchora, the butter thief. But now he's going to be bound by rope to that wooden thing. So 1 minute, she can't bind him because his opulences don't permit it. Then, out of love, he agrees to be bound. His opulences fade into the background. They're always there, but in Braj Leela, they're not the trump card. They're not the dominant reality. What happens when Putana comes to town? She offers her poisoned breast to Krishna, to little Krishna. And she's aware there's something extraordinarily powerful about this little child. As she offers Krishna her poisoned breast, Krishna closes his eyes. There are various reasons given for that. One of them being that he's going to have to kill a woman, and so he closes his eyes, showing that sorry, but so what happens when he sucks her breast? The Aishvarya Shakti, the opulence, power, and majesty jumps out from the shadows, so to speak. And he sucks out her life. So that's the way it is. Krishna's all-knowing, all-powerful, but in Vrindavan, he simply wants to exchange love with his devotees. So therefore, his opulences take a back seat, so to speak. He knows how to enjoy. As you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna says, all these reverential hymns of the Vedas don't give me as much pleasure as when my mother chastises me, or my friends, my cowherd boyfriends climb on my shoulders and say, you're no big man at all. We're just as good as you. And when his girlfriends chastise him, you looked at some other girl. We'll have nothing to do with you. That's where he gets his most pleasure from. The spontaneous loving affairs of the residents of Vrindavan. More so than being all-knowing and all-powerful. All right, I see a hand in a box that says Julian.
Hare Krishna, very much. It's actually using one of the boys' computers. The question kind of got answered, but my hand was up. We see lots of calamities going on in the world today, right now, and well, always going on, but as you said. I was thinking about Arjuna and the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how relevant that is right now. And in there, we see Arjuna getting perplexed from every angle of vision, trying to work it all out. And I was thinking, wow, that just seems quite the sort of thing that a lot of us have been going through, and trying to work out the Krishna conscious response. What is the best Krishna conscious response? And in there, obviously, Krishna then says, well, actually, you were trying to work it all out, but they're all going to die anyway, meaning the stage is set. The plan is going ahead. The choice is whether you want to, become Krishna conscious and execute my order. I was trying to really meditate, and maybe you can illuminate and enlighten me more on looking the world situation now. As you say, it's always been like that, but now it's illuminated clearly. The situation is our response really should be like Arjuna, that understanding that actually we can get caught up in this and that and the agents of this, but the stage is set. All our response should be is to execute the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because I noticed myself, sometimes I was sinking into bodyism, you could say, thinking about my own skin, so to speak, rather than what is actually best for Krishna's pleasure. And it became quite stark to me that, am I thinking too much on the bodily platform when I should actually just be thinking of what is the best thing to execute right now with this situation? The stage is set, because you see some devotees getting caught up in human rights and laws and this and that, and you get kind of sucked into that. So I was wondering, can you illuminate and make clear what the best response should be in this situation? And is it right that really the stage is set? People are getting their reactions getting caught up in trying to change that in some way is not really what we should
Well, my
do.
question is, why just now are we thinking in this way? As you yourself pointed out, these things are always going on. It's just that sometimes they jump to the forefront of our awareness and sometimes they don't. Or sometimes we have knowledge of such intricacies, perplexities, complexities, and sometimes we don't. Material happiness simply means forgetfulness at the moment. Forgetfulness for the moment of distress. So once we understand that the entire package of material existence is based on forgetfulness, then we can start to see the reality. So I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada speak to a reporter in Melbourne, Australia, and Srila Prabhupada, in response to the reporter's question, asked him, well, what is your goal in life? And the reporter was kind of taken aback. Like, what do you mean, what is the goal in my life? You know, what's the big deal? In other words, goal in my life is find happiness within myself. Sounds like a great answer. Yeah. Yeah. Find happiness within myself. Yeah. So he answered that to Srila Prabhupada. My goal is to find happiness within myself. And the reporter was sure this is such an appropriate, universally appreciated answer. And Srila Prabhupada's response was, that is dog's happiness. And he explained, the dog thinks it's happy when it's barking at strangers. Woof, woof, woof. I'm finding happiness within myself. Woof, woof, woof. Sometimes here at New Varshana, I'm observing those, what do you call them? Swamp chickens? I think their name begins with a P.
Pukiko.
Huh?
Pukiko.
Whatever. So I see them pecking at the ground, whatever they're looking for, whatever they eat. And I can see they're finding happiness within themselves. I watch the birds come and sit on a tree for a while and then take off suddenly. And I know they're finding happiness within themselves. But how can we find happiness within ourselves as long as we think we are the body and mind? It's not going to work. So whether this happens in the world or that happens in the world, we need to know I am part and parcel of Krishna, meant to engage in Krishna's service. There'll be different realizations of how to apply that according to the spiritual advancement of the person, the couple, the family. So we're flexible and open-minded to different levels of realization. We don't want anyone to feel put off or put out because they're thinking so much of their material well-being. Especially householders generally have that inclination. We don't want them to feel bent out of shape. Oh, you're thinking about your material welfare. It's Maya. We don't want to do that. You can't expect everyone to be like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Remember, he had arrested a mystic yogi who was claiming to be Vishnu and even inviting the married ladies of his vicinity to come dance with him in his so-called rasa dance. And the foolish ladies, even though married, were coming. Oh, he's an incarnation of Vishnu. And so when Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard about this, he was a government magistrate. He's a householder. He went to arrest this imposter. And the imposter first tried to bribe him, the Vishnu imposter. I can, with my mystic power, I can make you a king. Didn't work. And then he threatened Bhaktivinoda Thakur that if you try to arrest me, you'll see what happens to your family. You've got a lot of children. Bhaktivinoda Thakur eventually had like 13 or 14 children. Don't touch me, you'll see what happens. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur had him arrested and put in jail. And sure enough, the whole family of Bhaktivinoda Thakur became sick, deathly ill. And his wife was pleading with him, let this mystic yogi out of jail. Please, we're all in such a situation. And what was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's response? We can all die, but he stays in jail. Now we can't expect our householders to be on that platform straight away. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a Paramahansa. So you have to understand the different levels of realization, different levels of spiritual advancement. And you're dealing with families. That means the wife may be thinking one way, the husband thinking another way, the kids are thinking yet another way. So the householders have to keep all that together and try to find a common cause. The main point is that Bhagavad Gita, the instructions therein are life and soul. And we should have foremost in our consciousness the desire to make the number one priority our spiritual advancement. Whether we live in this house or that house, whether we move here or move there, whether we marry or don't marry, whether we have children or don't have children, what's the best decision we can make for our spiritual advancement? We don't want to become so caught up in material intricacies that come and go that we lose sight of our spiritual necessities. What about that? What about our spiritual necessities? We may be thinking, where will there be food? Where will there be water? Where will there be security? Where will there be chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna's service? Especially if we want the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we want to be connected with the service of giving Krishna to others. So we have to be flexible and open to different levels of realization, different levels of spiritual advancement, even within the same family. It's not that someone marries and that means automatically their spouse is on the same level as them or will remain at the same level. So therefore, we have to be flexible. And the best we can do is to stress what is the core principle, because householders will apply Krishna's instructions this way or that way. And you know, those of you residing in New Zealand, you know how Kiwis are. Sooner or later, everyone marches to their own drummer. It's like, okay, guys, all for one and one for all. Everyone scatters in different directions. We're all together now. Hey, where'd everyone go? What happened to the community? Hmm. So I hope I've answered your question in a way that allows everyone to find some niche, some situation. We don't want to discourage anyone. You've got to live like Bhakti Thakur. At the same time, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita is the reality. And we're meant to follow in those footsteps sooner or later. And the force of material nature often makes the need arise in us sooner than later.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Goroy.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, thank you very much for allowing me to ask a question. My question is related to a talk you gave on the 17th. You were talking about how the devotee's reality is defined by their relationship to the Lord, whether they're in Vaikuntha or in Goloka, and how it determines their reality. Yeah, I'm getting this from my notes. I may have paraphrased what you said. But is it the same for the disciple and his relationship with the spiritual master, that his reality and his experience of spiritual life is determined by the nature of the relationship?
I'm not quite understanding what you mean exactly by nature of the relationship. Are you talking about the swarup, the eternal constitutional position, or what are you speaking of?
No, I'm speaking more about the attitude of the disciple. During the lead up to your Vyasa Puja, myself and Sundarangi were doing some research about Guru Tattva and how that works for the disciple. And in one of the lectures that we listened to, Mahanidhi Swami was talking about how the disciple views the spiritual master defines their experience. That if you view, sorry, Gurudev.
There can be material conceptions and material desires in relation to the spiritual master. I was just hearing one God brother, Kripamoy Prabhu, describing how in India, people expect the guru to be a miracle worker, mystic power. Just like Prabhupada was speaking to one politician in West Bengal whose grandfather was very devoted. And so this powerful politician was telling Prabhupada, I met a mystic yogi the other day, and the yogi was only wearing a loincloth. And yet he held out his hand and an apple appeared. And I know it's got to be mystic power because he wasn't wearing any clothes except a loincloth. He couldn't just reach into a pocket or behind his chutter and pull out an apple. So the person was asking Prabhupada, can you explain this? I'm so astonished. An apple appeared in his hand. Prabhupada looked at him and said, I have throughout the world 100 or more temples with deities, and in each temple, there are so many kinds of apples being offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Apple chutney, apple salad, apple this, apple that. And here you are telling me about a mystic yogi, and you're so fascinated, who produced one apple in his hand, when throughout the world, there are so many Krishna temples, so many apples, and so many different kinds of preparations. So if you want to compare mystic power in terms of the number of apples, in other words, Prabhupada's explaining, well, let me show you what the real mysticism is. Here's global appleism. So in India, many people expect the guru to have some kind of mystic power, work a miracle. And in the Western world, people expect the guru to, well, be a friend, palsy-walsy. Or they expect the guru to be a priest. He just does rituals. Initiation's a ritual, and that's all it is. Yeah. There was a fire. There was a ritual. I got my name. Finished. So, friend, priest, or therapist. He's got to sort out my mental problems, my traumas from childhood. He's got to do all those things. But real Guru Tattva means I see my spiritual master as the servant of his spiritual master. I see the parampara coming through my spiritual master. He's the servant of the servant, and I also want to be the servant of the servant. So no need for various unnecessary complexities. Through that mentality, through that consciousness, as I just described, everything comes to you. From the beginning stage to the advanced stage. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyate katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana. Unto someone who has a complete dedication to the Supreme Personality Godhead and their spiritual master, all the meanings of the Vedas become revealed. Prakashante Mahatmana, unto that great soul. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized this. This is the mysticism of the disciplic succession. You'll get all that you're due in this way. Your Vaidhi Bhakti will gradually turn into raga, spontaneous attachment. In time, you can't force it. There's a saying, you can't hurry love, you just have to wait. It was a popular song when I was a kid, I admit, when I was a teenager. The lead singer is crooning, you can't hurry love, you just have to wait. And the backup singers are responding in chorus, can't wait, can't wait, can't wait. The purpose of the rules and regulations is to allow our attraction for Krishna to revive. Srila Prabhupada explains that you execute your devotional activities because of injunction. That's Vaidhi Bhakti. And then gradually you start developing spontaneously a desire to let me serve Krishna this way, let me serve Krishna that way. Whatever service I have, let me improve it. I want to do that. Even what seems to be an ordinary task that you've been assigned, you spontaneously and happily want to execute it better and better. And then gradually, as you advance in bhakti, by hearing about Gaura Lila, Krishna Lila, you start developing, in a non-artificial way, attachment for an associate of the Lord. So all that comes about through dedicated execution of the bhakti process. So I hope I've in some way answered your question. No need to make things unnecessarily intricate. All right. It looks like Jiva Shakti. Is that correct?
Yes, Gurudev. Hare Krishna. My question actually builds on your answer to Badrazane's question, which is around preaching according to our realization. I find
I wasn't saying preaching, I was saying understand that there'll be devotees at different levels and different realizations, and you have to be able to accommodate that while at the same time presenting what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita.
So in Grihastha life, I find that opportunities present themselves to do more subtle preaching, often in terms of, be it, gardening with neighbors and building relationships and sending examples, or cooking prasadam for my son and his friends. And so you were talking about asking what's best for spiritual advancement. Would that kind of subtle opportunity that presents itself more easily in Grihastha life be just as good for spiritual advancement than going out on book distribution?
Lord Chaitanya orders, wherever you go, whomever you meet, do what?
Spread.
Teach
Glory
the
of Krishna.
science of Krishna. The more you do that, the more you're in touch with the current coming from Lord Chaitanya. So I don't know what you're doing when you're gardening with your friends. Are you teaching them about the Bhakti Lata, the creeper of devotional service?
No.
Of course, when you offer food and serve that to your son, well, that is certainly a devotional activity. If you tell your neighbors This garden is all for Krishna's pleasure. Let's help. Well, they're certainly benefited in that way. Now, it's true that, let's say, you as a devotee drop something on the ground and someone picks it up and gives it to you, and you say thank you. The person moves on. Even though that person knows nothing, Krishna has noted this person has helped a devotee. But the more the person knows what he or she is doing, the more potent is what happened. Just like with prasad distribution. We've heard that if someone takes prasad, they're benefited. Now, how much are they benefited? If they simply take prasad and have no idea what it is, they are guaranteed to be able to take prasad again in whatever species of life in the next life. But if they know this is Hare Krishna food, this is Krishna prasad, this is Krishna food, if they know that, they're guaranteed a human form of life in their next birth for taking prasad again. So we don't want to minimize the consciousness, how much persons are aware. The more conscious they are of serving Krishna or being in some relation to Krishna's service or devotee service, the more benefit there is. So we shouldn't lump everything all together. Well, making prasad and serving it to my son, with gardening with my neighbors. Wait, let's hold on there. They're different shades. They're different intensities. There's no doubt that just by your neighbors knowing Jiva Shakti, that's nice. But even nicer is if Jiva Shakti can some or other figure out how to engage them in Krishna's service. All right. Sayak Basu, you haven't asked a question in a long time. Make it a good one now.
Maharaj, my question is, Guru Maharaj, when suffering comes in our life, should we understand that it is coming to make us more surrendered to Krishna? But if that suffering is not making me surrender more, in that way, how to deal with that situation? That I'm not feeling more surrendered to Krishna and I'm getting affected by that suffering. So how to deal with that situation?
We cry out for Krishna's help. I thought that I could handle this. I thought that I was advanced, and now just see my real situation. Please help so that I can utilize this situation to move forward in my attraction for you. Gita Govinda, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Gurudev, Gokishore here. So it's two aspects to the question. Srila Prabhupada, he mentions that we should be discussing Shastra from all angles of vision. So I just wanted to ask you, how do we qualify ourselves, or what does that mean? And also the other aspect is what is the correct way to discuss Shastra? Because we see that in the modern culture, a lot of discussion is on, say, social media or whatever, and there doesn't seem to be an understanding of who's qualified, who's not qualified, what you should take, what you shouldn't take, what should be discussed. So it can get quite confusing sometimes.
You take Bhagavad Gita, Nectar Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna book. You open the books, you read. It's like you and your wife can read together and discuss what you read, this way, that way, the other way. That's what I do, whether I'm with younger devotees or my God brothers. We sit down and open the books and we read and we discuss. Now, depending on whom you're dealing with, the persons may or may not be absorbed in social media. So, but we want to be absorbed in the media of the spiritual world. We want to find out about the social life in Gora Lila and Krishna Lila. So open the book or turn on your Kindle and read and discuss. Just like Pritchett and Shukadev Goswami are doing. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada explains that if you just are aware of 4 books, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can preach all over the world. You can do outreach all over the world. Householders especially need to understand they are always fighting a battle with time. They don't have so much time. So the analysis has to be there of how can I best utilize the free time I have, because there's work, there are family affairs. So you always have to think, how can we have more opportunity for hearing and chanting together? I've often explained that there's another mantra in many households besides the Hare Krishna mantra. What is that other mantra? Time, money, time, money, money, time, money, time, time, money, time, money, money, time, money, time. There's never enough. Never enough money, never enough time. But the effort to make the time for Krishna, giving Krishna quality time, always has to be there. All right. Sankarshan Ram. Someone misspelled your name on your Sankarshan Rama. How is Sankarshan with the goddess of fortune, Rama? You, with the long A at the end, you change the personality completely.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I was reading in the 3rd canto Srimad Bhagavatam, the section where Vidura, he approaches Uddhava for instruction, and Uddhava, he directs Vidura to Maitreya. And in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he says, although one may be well-versed in the transcendental science, one should be careful about the offense of Maryada Vyakti Krama, or impertinently surpassing a greater personality. So my question was, we can see that Srila Shukadev Goswami was junior to everyone present when he was instructing Maharaj Parikshit. and so many exalted devotees like Narada Muni were present. So what protected Shukadeva Goswami from this Maryada Vyakrama, and what was his unique qualification which distinguished him amongst all these exalted souls?
He had their blessings. He had the blessings of Narada Muni, of Vyasadeva. That makes all the difference in the world. There were the greatest personalities present during this session, in which there was a lack of unanimity, which Pritchett Maharaj noticed. Oh, we've got heavenly planets, elevationists among the audience. We've got impersonalists aiming for Brahman. We've got mystic yogis. We've got bhaktas. I want to know what's the best thing to do in my situation. Now, he already knew, but he was thinking of the world. I want the world to know. But we've got all these different kinds of metaphysical people from all over the universe gathered. There were many great personalities, Krishna Bhaktas there. They could have said something, but they didn't. They were thinking, no one asked us, so the best thing is to let Shukadev come and resolve all this. So with the blessings of his spiritual superiors, Shukadeva Goswami spoke. The blessings are so important. Upon his entrance into the assembly, everyone bowed down to Shukadeva Goswami, but not his spiritual elders, Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. So this is Vaishnava etiquette. We want the blessings. It's not that in the presence of a superior, we can't do anything. It all depends on blessings and permission. Well, it looks like Janmashtami Krishna has his hand up.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Hey, just wanted to ask you, Gurudev, this question about the humility. How do we develop humility so that we can please you and serve you sincerely in service to Srila Prabhupada?
Humility is often most required in the association of devotees, especially when we notice that devotees don't think the way we do and they don't do things the way we do. After a while, we start to notice that. What's wrong with these people? I mean, they're bhaktas. I mean, how come they don't think the way I do? How come they don't do things the way I do? And this is what makes taking responsibility in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. It makes it difficult because you have to deal with persons of so many different natures and so many different mentalities, backgrounds, and yet there has to be some coordination for achieving Mahaprabhu's goals. So humility especially means to be able to handle that, and there'll be sometimes misunderstandings involved. Sometimes we'll feel minimized. Indeed, sometimes we'll feel humiliated. Humility and humiliation, they sound almost like the same word. But by taking responsibility for Lord Chaitanya's mission, we're on the expressway back to Krishna. If we want to be noticed by Krishna, according to our capacity, we take up some responsibility for expanding Lord Chaitanya's mission. All right, I see Laura Archie's hand.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. I have a question about this thing, pioneering, and how that relates to the stability that's required in household life. And sometimes I think with our generation, we, like you say, money, time, money, time, money, money, and mantra, we're quite limited and restricted. But at the same time, I wonder if we don't do some pioneering, it may make it more difficult for younger generations to take up the process of bhakti. So I do wonder whether...
First of all, what do you mean by pioneering?
Well, increasing the social infrastructure of the society. For example, you know, farms, schools, growing food, businesses, these things that support the more Varnashram side of Krishna consciousness.
You do what you can do. Whatever you can offer, kindly do that, and it'll all be appreciated. Householders have different realizations, different inclinations. They're not all on the level of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in case you've noticed. But appreciate the contribution of everyone and anyone. Just like in Auckland, I like the way that Sankarshan Ram and Jamasri Krishna, Munjaranya have arranged for appreciating all those who are helping push on the urban outreach, making everyone feel that their contribution's honored. Some persons may only be able to do such and such once a month. Someone else, well, twice a month. Someone can only contribute $20. Someone else can contribute $1,000, but they make everyone's contribution appreciated. So it's hard to generalize about householders, you know. Families are different. Even in the same family, the husband and wife are different. So we have to learn to value everyone's contribution. And that's Sankirtan. Just like when there's the monthly Sankirtan festival. We're so happy that someone participates just once a month. We don't say, oh, you're only coming once a month. If you can do more, of course, that's glorious. So if you can expand Lord Chaitanya's mission this way, that way, all the things you mentioned, great. But you'll have to learn to work with those who have lesser aspirations, lesser realizations. And that's where humility is so much required. All right, we're getting near the end here. Someone at New Gupta Vraj who hasn't asked a question, wants to ask? Is that Nomi or?
Hi, Krishna Gurudev. Madhupan Leela here. Have a question. I have a question about serving prasad and what the proper mood and mindset is when we're serving, whether it's to devotees or to people who come to Krishna Food Cafe or Bhakti Lounge, what our proper mindset and mood should be when we're serving prasad.
You're serving Krishna's mercy. And just as the attitude of the cook affects the prasad, similarly, as I often point out, the attitude of the server affects the whole prasad honoring experience. So the more the servers are conscious that we're distributing Krishna's mercy, whether at the Krishna food on the campus or at the outreach center, the more potent the experience becomes. So you're becoming an expert chef, gourmet chef. And part of that being an expert Krishna chef is serving prasad in the enlivening state of consciousness. Okay. I see one more question. Is that the PKA ashram? Someone is there who has a question? Or this will be the last question.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. It's Akash speaking. I just had a question. That, so when I first started practicing Krishna consciousness or Bhakti, there's so many mystical stuff that happening to me that made me have more faith on Krishna, especially from chanting Hare Krishna. But why did mystical stuff stop happening? Can you please explain this to me, Gurudev?
Why? What's that? The last sentence?
It's like mystical stuff that happening to me when I started first practicing Krishna consciousness or Bhakti.
Why what?
Like mystical stuff happening to me.
What about
from
it? What
chanting
about
Hare
it?
Krishna. Like I feel like when I
What's
first
the last
started-
thing you said? You said why did it start or why did it stop?
Stop.
Oh, because you're getting purified.
Hare Krishna.
It reminds me of one devotee questioning Srila Prabhupada. When I offer food to Krishna and say the prayers, I see a green light surround the food. And Srila Prabhupada replied, just go on chanting and it'll go away. So we're glad you're making spiritual advancement and all that mental assortment is gradually fading into the background. Sometimes it's because of various supplements that we took in our previous days. So you're still rising early in the morning and chanting so many rounds?
Yes.
That is wonderful.
Thank you, Gurudev.
All right. So I thank you all for your association. And we look forward to seeing you all again. Hare Krishna.